And we continue at 2:05 in the afternoon on the John Phillips Show. Mr. Randy Wings in Culver City.
I'm going to need my friend Henry Lee for this one.
It's happened yet again.
Someone got robbed at gunpoint for their Pokemon cards.
Again?
It's happened yet again.
In fact, it happened twice.
It's happened yet again.
People need to get a life.
Some of these cards are worth $1 million.
Oh. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. It is our pleasure to welcome our next guest to the program. He is a legal analyst and co-host of the Too Many Lawyers podcast, which you can download wherever you download your favorite podcast. I have it downloaded automatically to my iPhone, and I even know how to use it. How about that? I listen to it all the time and highly recommend. Royal Oaks, welcome.
Hey, thanks a lot, John. I believe it's still legal to say Happy New Year for another 2 days. So Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you, and thanks so much for stopping by.
My pleasure.
Well, let's get to what happened in Venezuela over the weekend, because there are a lot of interesting parts to this story. And I first want to start out by talking about just my political reaction to it in terms of where I think this puts us in the world. Let's start out with the fact that apparently the Chinese had no clue it was coming. The Chinese, of course, invest a lot of money in their various intelligence agencies. They have people who have infiltrated Silicon Valley, people who have infiltrated our military, people who have infiltrated Eric Swalwell's bedroom, just all over the place. So I think the working assumption is that there's not a lot that goes on worldwide that the Chinese don't know about. In this particular case, the Chinese apparently had no clue that this was going to happen, to the degree that they had a delegation that was in Venezuela when it happened, and it occurred right underneath their noses. So that's point one. Point two is that many U.S. presidents have been reluctant to go into Venezuela to execute this warrant because they were worried about the defense system that Venezuela had. Venezuela, of course, invested a lot of money in Chinese and Russian-made defense systems, and the working assumption was that those would work and would prevent any efforts to get inside the country to take him into custody. Well, as we learned, those systems folded. They didn't work at all. We were able to get in and out of that country with their president lickety-split. And third, which I think is a very important point, in Russia, domestically, the oligarchs are furious at Putin because they're so heavily invested in Ukraine right now, both with their military and with their pocketbook. They don't have the resources to respond to anything that's going on internationally. And now with the oil in Venezuela that could be going on the open market, this could end up destroying the Russian economy. I think we learned a lot of big things from what happened over the weekend. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's a great overview. On your first point about how it's kind of amazing that China didn't know what was happening, I have two reactions. First, is super reassuring. I mean, you have this worry that, Russia and China and Iran somehow have, boots on the ground spies. I mean, how hard would it be to, sort of infiltrate, have somebody pretend to be a harmless college student and then, get a job with the CIA? So if they really didn't know, that is amazingly reassuring and almost unbelievable, because when you think about the logistics and the time and the months of planning, all of the CIA and the Defense Department or Department of War, et cetera, I guess my only, sort of asterisk in my head, which can be painful, is maybe they are pretending they didn't know because they don't want to tip off the fact that they did kind of know, figured maybe there's nothing we can do about it. So who knows? But let's be optimists and hope that they really didn't know. Your second point about how Venezuela, didn't help itself, I guess I'm not surprised for this reason. I didn't know too much about the Venezuelan oil business, like nothing, except, it's pretty big. But what we've learned over the last week or so is that Maduro really sucks as an oil CEO. I mean, he and his predecessor, Hugo Chavez, went from having this gigantic, titan of oil to it's, I think, a third of what it was 10, 12 years ago. And apparently what happened is that when you are a criminal, you're a narco-terrorist drug lord, like Bryan Cranston in Breaking Bad, only even bigger, you can't afford to have really smart people like Billy Bob Thornton from Landman knowing where to look for the gas and the oil, because they would see, oh, this guy's a crook. And so they've basically got second-class folks, and that must have been what happened, because how do you run it into the ground like that? Your last point about the oligarchs being mad at Putin, that's, yeah, I'm not surprised to hear that. And, we think of Russia, as the old-fashioned image of the USSR, and even after the Cold War hit and the USSR disappeared, still we think of them as being gigantic. But when you look at the numbers, they're just not that big. I mean, I don't know. Several American states are probably bigger GDP-wise. So, yeah, I would think that the oligarchs are probably pretty ticked off at the big guy in Moscow there in the Kremlin, because, things are shrinking. And apparently, according to the recent articles, they're just grabbing people off the street in Moscow, putting mentally ill people and disabled people in the front lines. It's really grim. So, yeah, you raised some really interesting angles about this Venezuela deal that people haven't been talking about in the last few days.
Well, let's go back to China and their intelligence here for a second. I'm sure they're shaking in their boots over there, because I know here, after the war in Iraq, where our intelligence agencies told us that Saddam Hussein and the Iraqis had weapons of mass destruction, that turned out to be fake. I remember when the government in Egypt fell and our intelligence agencies were caught completely flat-footed there. We had no idea that that was about to happen. When you realize that you have holes in your operation, you have to fix them. You have to do something to make sure that that doesn't happen again. Our intelligence this time around seemed to know exactly where he was. They had informants who were very close to him. They knew how to get to him. They knew how to get in. They knew how to get out. And that makes me sleep a little bit better at night, knowing that our agencies appear to be working out better than theirs.
No, you're right. And I think it maybe is consistent with other aspects of life in China versus life in America. What we've heard in recent years is that, of course, they've got more than 1 billion people, and they've got lots of super brilliant people, and they've got technology is incredible. But when it comes to really creativity, inspirational stuff, sort of entrepreneurial bursts forth, that comes out of the United States, and I think that's what's kept China behind us, because they've just got this lockstep system, this business. Well, kind of like what Mamdani was saying, Mamdani in New York. He's saying, well, rugged individualism is going to be replaced by the warmth of collectivism, and that's music to the ears of democratic socialists, and that's fine. But in terms of what a society produces, you don't get the kind of breakthroughs in vaccines and technology and military stuff that we have. And I think that's probably why we're so far ahead of them. I guess one scary aspect, John, is, how many times are we going to just kick China and Russia around before they feel like they have to do something? I mean, the analogy is imperfect, but, after Trump beat Kamala Harris over the next several months, Trump was riding so high, the Democrats were desperate to come up with a strategy. We're not just going to sit here and let us be kicked around by this guy. We've got to be aggressive. And you remember that somebody issued the memo, start cursing. You go on Bill Maher's real time and drop the F-bomb. And over and over we saw it. Gavin Newsom, and to hide the kids, cover their ears. I think China, maybe they're saying to themselves, how many more of these big things, the Iran blockbuster bomb and now this, we've got to do something. Now, I'm hoping it doesn't mean they're going to go 120 miles across the strait and take over Taiwan or do some other mischief in the South China Sea. But I would think that there's got to be a lot of incentive and a lot of pressure by hardliners in Russia and China to say, we can't just let this guy. Now he's talking about Greenland. Stephen Miller is saying, well, there's no reason why Denmark gets to have Greenland. Why shouldn't we? I mean, if the dominoes start falling like that, you got to figure the bad guys are going to do something to avoid, global embarrassment.
Let's get to the legal aspects of this now, because we know that there was a warrant that existed for the arrest of Maduro. That warrant was executed over the weekend. We know that he is now in New York and he is facing federal charges. What charges is he looking at, and what kind of time is he looking at?
Yeah, you get 4 counts: narco-terrorism conspiracy, cocaine importation, possible machine guns, conspiracy to possess machine guns. So you're talking about life multiple times over if he's convicted of everything. One interesting twist is, there's a federal death penalty. It's not used very often, but this is not a death penalty type deal that they've charged him with. But if they were to, for example, come up with examples of fentanyl exporting, that actually can be tied to killing people, they could up the ante and create a bargaining chip by adding the death penalty as a possibility. But so far, it isn't. It's just life.
What is his legal strategy going to be?
Well, the first strategy is immunity. Hey, the guy was a president of a country. Now, you can argue over whether he was legitimately elected and so on. Hey, Donald Trump liked to argue over whether a president was legitimately elected. But the fact is, that was his title. You can't just go in and grab somebody. I mean, he's a prisoner of war, as he said in his brief appearance in court the other day. But the good news for the Department of Justice is that we've kind of seen this movie before, and everybody's been talking about the Manuel Noriega Panama dictator precedent from the late 80s and early 90s, and we're pretty solid there. The Supreme Court and the rest of the judicial system in America, their position is, look, if you go in and you violate his Miranda rights and don't forget to tell Maduro or to tell him in English instead of Spanish, that could be a problem. Maybe that could prevent a conviction, but in terms of the basic legality of going overseas, extracting the president of another company, bringing him here to respond to an indictment that happened during Trump's first term, and then Biden doubled down on it. He not only said the indictment was valid, Biden came up with the idea, let's offer a $25 million reward to get Maduro, and then Trump doubles that, I guess. So, yeah, there shouldn't be a problem with the fact that we did this and we brought him in terms of immunity. One whole card that the new fancy defense lawyer, Barry Pollock, could play, he handled the Julian Assange defense and did a great job there. Pollock could say, well, this is interesting. I'm entitled to this Brady rule. I get to see everything you got in your file that might suggest that my guy isn't so guilty. And the discovery process, you have to open up your files. Sometimes the CIA and the FBI and the DOJ, when they've really gone full bore with all their secret stuff to get to where we are, they don't want to hand it over. It would interfere with national security. And sometimes the judge plays ball, and sometimes the judge will say, well, we'll do summaries, we'll redact it. But sometimes the judge doesn't. Now, this judge, as you know, he's 92 years old, Alvin Hellerstein in New York City, appointed by Clinton in 98. He's no big fan of Trump. Hellerstein recently was the guy who said, oh, yeah, Alvin Bragg is entitled to go against Donald Trump for the Stormy Daniels hush money stuff. And that was a kind of a controversial decision. So he's not a MAGA guy, but he seemed like a pretty tough cookie at the arraignment the other day. He said, come on back on March 17, we'll have another hearing. I don't know how many more March 17s Alvin Hellerstein is going to see at 92. God bless him. Hopefully he lives to 122. But it's not ideal to have to change horses in midstream and have a different judge handle the second half of the Maduro trial.
Is that common for judges to stay on the bench to 92 years of age?
No, real uncommon. Usually about 65, they do what they call senior status. They're still federal judges, but they just take a smaller caseload and, usually not the huge cases. This guy's got some experience in big cases. He released Michael Cohen during the whole Donald Trump brouhaha in New York. But as the decades go by, it's increasingly rare to see a federal judge in his or her 80s or 90s continue on the bench. But apparently this guy loves what he does.
That's got to be a pretty heavy workload, and it seems like this guy gets all the famous cases.
Well, a bunch of them. And the workload is kind of the key. When you go senior status, one of the features is you don't work as hard. You don't have made as many cases. You don't have as many hours to work. You can kind of cut back and say to the head judge of the court, when you turn 85, hey, I still want to hang in, but, not so many cases. But you're right. He hasn't slowed down that much. But, nowadays when you're 92 is kind of like when you were 72 several decades ago, I guess.
What do you make of the jury pool? Because we know that New York City is a city that voted against Donald Trump all three times. We know that that is a city that has convicted him before when he's been brought up on charges in the New York courts. We know that that is a city that just voted for a mayoral candidate whose politics are very similar to Maduro's. Do you think they can get 12 votes to convict him there?
That's a great question. And, a lot of people were wondering when the story broke, what's wrong with Florida? Couldn't you make some sort of a legally proper connection between what Maduro is doing and Florida as opposed to New York? And, probably the pool would be much friendlier. And I think what's going to happen, John, is either things are going to go to heck down in Caracas, and you're going to have chaos and violence and all sorts of terrible things that folks will trace to what Donald Trump is doing. Analogous to the Colin Powell Pottery Barn rule. You buy it, you break it, you buy it, and we ran into such trouble in Iraq when we went in and took out the head guy. If the same kind of disastrous stuff it develops in Venezuela, then the residents of New York City, who, as you say, are no big fans. They voted basically 90-10 for Biden and for Kamala Harris against Trump. They're going to be saying to themselves, well, maybe Maduro was a bad guy, but there are a lot of bad guy narco people out there. We've watched Breaking Bad, and who do we want to have a smile on his face when we come back with our verdict? Donald Trump, we hate him, or Maduro. All we know about him is he looks like he could play center for the Caracas basketball team. Maybe he's a bad guy. So you're right. This could end up to be an egg on the face of the DOJ.
The Democrats are saying that what Trump did over the weekend was illegal. But as you mentioned, we've done this before with Manuel Noriega, and that was allowed. That trial moved forward. What do you make of those arguments?
Well, I think the Democrats have to push back because it's an outgrowth of their desire to not just let Donald Trump run roughshod over everybody in his second term. And so, most of them, the Schumers, will say, of course, Maduro's a terrible guy, whereas Mayor Mamdani is saying, send him back. This was illegal. So I think what they have to do is push back and come up with things that they want to use as talking points. And a very effective talking point probably will be, well, what's next? There's a queasiness in the stomachs of Americans when they think about, well, we love the flag waving stuff. We love Trump having another notch on the gun belt, but is it going to turn into another Iraq? And so I think that's something that the Democrats are poised to exploit, and that's going to be a big talking point.
Royal Oakes, ABC News legal analyst and co-host of the Too Many Lawyers podcast, which you can download wherever you download your favorite podcasts. Royal, what's coming up on the next podcast?
Yeah, the Nick Reiner deal is going to be a big deal. As you know, he has an arraignment scheduled for tomorrow morning. It was delayed a few weeks from December. The speculation is the big defense attorney, Alan Jackson, is trying to figure out, what do I do, insanity or schizophrenia? So it'll be real interesting to see if Jackson tips his hand at 8:30 tomorrow morning in the criminal courts building. So we're going to dive into the Reiner case on Too Many Lawyers.
All right, Royal Oakes, thanks so much for stopping by. Always a pleasure.
You bet. Thanks.
If you want to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And next week, Randy, we're going to the San Fernando Valley.
Save the date. Next Friday, January 16th from noon to 3. It's a good old-fashioned live broadcast of the John Phillips Show on a Jimmy Buffett Friday. We'll be at the Pineapple Hill Saloon and Grill, the third time we've done a live broadcast from there, and we love it down there. Beautiful outdoor patio, lots of space. They even got the back bar now. Great drinks, great food, and we're there for a very important reason. We're going to have Susan Shelley with us from the Howard and Jarvis Taxpayer Association. As the courts have made it easier to raise your taxes, we need you to come by and sign the petition to save Prop 13. You can work ahead of time and not have to stand in that line by going to the website and handling it now. SaveProp13.com. That's SaveProp13.com. We'll tell you more about your taxpayer rights and protecting Prop 13, and we'll be hanging out from noon to 3. So if you've never been to one of our live events, this is the one to go to. Come by, say hi. The Pineapple Hill Saloon in Sherman Oaks from noon to 3 next Friday.
800-222-5222 is a telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. And right now it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
It's happened yet again.
It's Wild Wild West out here.
It's the California Crime Blotter with John
And Randy.
And this edition of the Blotter involves recreational vehicles.
Specifically, RVs that have taken over neighborhoods in Lincoln Heights that are leading to all kinds of crime. And the city councilperson for Lincoln Heights, Eunice Hernandez, doesn't want to do a damn thing about it.
Quite frankly.
For more, here's ABC 7 Eyewitness News in Los Angeles.
They line both sides of the street and become a source of sewage, trash, and crime. We're talking about abandoned RVs that have plagued an LA street for years.
Frustration on that street so high, 7 on Your Side Investigates was called in to get answers from city leaders. Eyewitness News investigative.
When Eunice doesn't answer the phone and Karen Bass doesn't answer the phone, your first place to call is the local news.
Well, when the mayor doesn't answer the phone and Eunice Hernandez doesn't answer the phone, it's Tuesday.
Eyewitness News investigative reporter Kevin Ozebek has tonight's 7 on Your Side Investigates.
See what I mean? This is not okay.
If you walk down this stretch of Humboldt Street with Stacy Verheileg, be careful where you step.
Uh-oh.
That's not good.
Just looking in here, there's cigarette butts, there's trash.
Booze.
The way she said it was funny.
Cigarette butts, just looking in here, there's cigarette butts, there's trash.
Booze.
This is what it's going to be like when tourists from Germany and Spain and Italy all come here for the World Cup.
Just looking in here, there's cigarette butts, there's trash.
Booze.
Yeah, they're going to come home with some stories.
Booze. It looks like used toilet paper.
Oh, no.
Oh.
Sometimes I'm really glad this is an audio format.
Pretty gross.
The pools of wastewater come from the rows of RVs in this Lincoln Heights neighborhood. So does the constant grinding hum of generators. And according to Stacy, so does all the crime.
So first on the list is the waste, then it's the noise pollution. Third on the list is the crime. That's how bad the generators are and how much waste there is out there.
I think at that point it's time to move.
It's why the industrial building she owns, loaded with toys for underprivileged children, is also loaded with cameras.
And I'm sure she's seen some things.
Just recently, those security cameras captured a man slipping in and sneaking up to the roof, where he stole the copper out of Stacy's AC.
Boy, it's like we keep hearing the same stories over and over and over again.
It's Groundhog Day.
But of course, we can't criminalize that behavior now, can we?
You know, let's criminalize catalytic converters. Let's criminalize copper.
Not here.
We need help.
Stacy says the crime has become so rampant here, she's had to fortify her building.
Remember when the city council in LA was debating whether to increase the fines and penalties for catalytic converter theft? And Eunice Hernandez said with a straight face, I can't vote for this because it would criminalize my community.
Oh, yes. And she meant it.
We need help.
Stacy says the crime has become so rampant here, she's had to fortify her building, and others are doing the same. We can see many are now caging in their utilities to prevent metal theft, and chain link fences like this one, well, they are being ripped right open.
Well, that's what you have to do. You have to put your equipment in a cage because we refuse to put these people in prison.
Or move.
So if you can see here, we've got patchwork over patchwork.
Gabriel Perez is with St. Vincent de Paul, and he's getting creative and scrappy with the patchwork because this fence needs to be fixed so often.
I will say, careful for any needles.
Because
Yeah, I wouldn't have the tourism board put that in the brochure.
The country, the people that are visiting us from third world countries for the World Cup are going to look at Los Angeles and be so thankful that they live in places that are cleaner than this.
Oh, they're going to be appalled.
because of the drugs and prostitution he's seeing, Gabriel worries for his employees and customers to the thrift store who walk down Humboldt, often in the street, since the RVs can overtake the sidewalk.
Well, I can imagine why the prostitutes are hanging outside the thrift store.
Why is that?
Because the customers are all looking for something used.
Proud of yourself?
I am.
For every dollar we have to spend on patchwork, on security, on providing a safe, secure health environment to working and to shopping, we're taking away from our mission to serve those in need.
I wonder if that guy voted in the last election.
He probably did, and for all the wrong people.
I mean, when you look at what got Ulysses Hernandez into that seat, who is the most outspoken DSA member on that city council, she knocked out an incumbent, Gil Cedillo, in a primary because the turnout was so low.
Yes!
And she's going to waltz to re-election.
Most likely.
We are working on it, and it's one of our priority areas.
Sure.
How's that going?
Councilmember Ulysses Hernandez represents this part of LA. Just a few weeks ago, she voted against moving forward with a new state law that will allow the city to remove more of these RVs.
Why would she do that?
Because those are the people that she supports.
The current law only allows RVs valued at $500 or less to be moved. The new law changes that threshold to $4,000.
Why did you vote against that?
The reason I voted against that was because I have met with people on the ground, community members living in these RVs.
You mean the ones that are stealing all the copper?
Those people.
The ones that are littering everywhere with needles and used toilet paper?
Don't criminalize her community.
I just didn't want to give constituents the false.
I got to get the hell out of this city. What am I doing?
I just didn't want to give constituents the false hope that this is going to be the game changer around our.
You know, I just spent 3 days in Madrid, which is the same population as the city of Los Angeles. And there's like one or two homeless people, but it is clean. You feel safe. What the hell am I doing here?
I was just in Tampa, not far from downtown. Clean, safe. I didn't see any homeless people either.
Around RVs in our city.
The council member says what may change the game and get these RVs out of here is funding she secured for more beds for the homeless.
Nope, that's not going to do it.
Nope, we're going to end up with more RVs.
Just because you give them a bed doesn't mean they stay there. They still litter everywhere and they still do all the stealing because we are housing first.
This is a top priority for us.
When will those RVs be gone from the street?
I don't have a timeline for when those RVs will not be on that street, but what I will...
Term's almost up, Ulysses. You going to get this done in the first 4 years?
It's like the permits for the fire victims. Yeah, we'll get right on that.
But what I will say is that we are exploring other places where we can have RVs that are not impacting the community.
Yeah, and by the way, this is what's going on throughout the entire city, and it's something that my city council person, Imelda Padilla, is now doing.
Street pavements that are cooler.
They want to take all the RVs that are clogging up Balboa Park because that's where the Olympics are going to be in a few years, and they want to put them in a metro park and ride lot that is right across the street from two different high schools.
Oh, that'll work out just fine.
Community.
But until that happens,
got 2 Super Duty locks.
The fortification of those doing business on Humboldt Street continues.
At what point do you get out? There are other cities in the county, let alone the region, that have warehouse space, and it's probably cheaper.
Life is too short to live like that.
Kevin Ozebek, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
So even though Councilmember Hernandez did vote against the resolution, it did still pass. So right now the city is figuring out how it will.
Someday soon, that block is going to have a majority, and then you better all hope you already sold your houses and got the hell out of this hellhole of a city.
But the problems just follow you because there was just a whack job mayor in Seattle that was elected that's just as nutty as Ulysses. Same thing with Chicago, same thing with New York.
I think Santa Fe's okay.
For now.
Small town.
It did still pass. So right now the city is figuring out how it will implement that new law, which goes into effect next year.
If you have a story for 7 on your side investigates.
If you've walked in feces lately, call Channel 7. They'll help you out.
And buy new shoes. 800-222-5222 is the telephone number. 1-800-222-5222. Let's go to John in San Luis Obispo. John, hello.
Hey, John. Glad you guys are back. Kind of missed you. Listened to you guys a lot up and down the 101. I think you guys really nail it. And thank you for keeping things focused on what we really have to remember and think about. And that's the fact that this state is upside down. And I wanted to ask you this because you're so up on things. I was once talking to someone, and they said it is written into the Constitution of California that it cannot go bankrupt, that there's some kind of institutionalized, I don't know, but I think that's the best thing that could happen to this state is for us to just go up and down, upside down, and start all over, because the sheeple in this state anymore, they're fools. We're just a state full of fools. Thanks.
Well, you're right. States cannot file for bankruptcy. Cities can. It is possible for cities to file for bankruptcy. We've seen that happen a few times. Mammoth Lakes up in Northern California, they filed for bankruptcy. Stockton went bankrupt after they got involved in a bad deal involving the ports. So it's possible for that to happen, but the state of California cannot file for bankruptcy. We can't go to bankruptcy court in front of a bankruptcy court judge. We have to balance our budget. And what California needs more than bankruptcy court is austerity. We need to live within our means. We need to stop the waste, fraud, and abuse. We are seeing that right now in Minnesota with the Somalis and the daycare centers. We have that on steroids in California. And if you eliminate that and you get rid of all the things that you don't need, like the safety ambassadors and all of those worthless social programs, we shouldn't have a problem paying our bills. There's a lot of wealth concentrated in this state, whether you're talking about Silicon Valley or the agricultural interests in the Central Valley, Hollywood, in Southern California. Our real estate certainly is worth a gold mine. We should have the ability to pay our bills. Our problem isn't something that was an act of God. It's not like a hurricane hit us and that's the reason why we're having financial troubles. Our problems are man-made. And the good thing about having problems that are man-made is that problems caused by man can be fixed by man. We just need to start voting differently. All right, it's time to reopen the California Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
We couldn't make this stuff up if we tried.
I said, hell no, baby boy. Let me get up on out of here.
It's the California Crime Blotter.
And this one involves yet another jewelry store being hit, this time in Sacramento.
And this jewelry store is probably going to go out of business because they didn't have insurance. For more, here's Fox 40 in Sacramento.
I spoke with the owner who's been having a really tough time. Him and his wife are just trying to pick up the pieces, and now they're asking the community for help.
It happened in broad daylight, right in the middle of a normal business day just days before Christmas. A jewelry store along busy Fulton Avenue in Arden was targeted with thieves making off with nearly $25,000 in gold and diamond rings. In this surveillance video, you can see one suspect run off with the rings.
Stop!
They did not stop.
No, they didn't.
While a second suspect tries to grab more.
Stop!
They also did not stop.
Nope.
And he had something...
Also, I just have to point this out. It's 2026. Why do security cameras still sound like they're from 1850?
Well, how about the visuals? Everything looks like the Bigfoot footage.
And he had something, his hand was in his vest. I thought he might have a gun or something like that, so I didn't try to fight with him.
Poor guy.
Well, he might have gun.
The owner says moments later, Sac County Sheriff's deputies arrived. A police report was filed. Also, deputies took fingerprints and collected surveillance footage.
I'm completely broke down. I cannot recover from that accident. So I have no choice. I have invested so much of everything, whatever I had, to provide to my 2 kids and my family.
Just over the weekend, he believes those same possible suspects came back, but this time the store was closed and the doors were locked.
This time they came.
They were going for round 2?
Hey, it's like eating potato chips. Sometimes you can't just have one.
This time they came with the gloves on with their hands. The last time there were 2 people. This time was 3 people wearing the gloves.
They brought a friend. Hey, you got to get in on this.
Everyone wants in on the action.
Wearing the gloves and the mask on their face.
Well, maybe they had COVID.
They're very concerned about slowing the spread.
But at the end of the day,
with some device on their pockets, I don't know, it's a gun. I don't know what is kind of something is there. You can see in the footage.
Inside and out, the business is covered with security cameras, but the property itself does not provide security. The owner says the timing couldn't be worse. He's already behind on rent and says low customer traffic has made it hard to stay afloat.
For small businesses like us, it's very hard to survive, especially in this economic situation. We are behind of 1 month rent. It's very hard for us to keep the rent. The rents keep going up. And the small business suffering, especially when the merchandise gets stolen.
Now with thousands lost, he says the only option left may be to close his doors for good.
My wife is traumatized. She cannot even sleep. Every day she's crying. How can we pay? We don't have much money to pay our rent. We are 1 month, 2 months behind on our rent.
This is unacceptable.
Oh, their lives are ruined.
We are 1 month, 2 months behind on our rent. How can we hire another security to stay? We are not big businesses. We are not a big jeweler that other is like millions of dollars.
As for insurance.
Yeah, go Rob K.
Yeah, if this guy wants to make some money, he needs to shut down that jewelry shop and open up a Somali daycare center.
As for insurance, the owner says his policy only covers the property, not.
What's that going to do?
Nothing. I guess they'll buy him a new door.
As for insurance, the owner says his policy only covers the property, not the merchandise that was stolen. Now, after 2 decades in business, he's turning to the community, hoping someone saw something and can help bring those responsible to justice.
Every dollar that they fund for us, if they fund for us, it will turn millions for them. So especially for small businesses, every dollar counts for them.
A GoFundMe has been created. You can find that link on our website, fox40.com. In Sacramento, covering local news that matters, Cedric Hood, Fox 40 News.
So there you go. A Sacramento jewelry stop been in business for 20 years after almost 2 break-ins where they had $25,000 worth of rings stolen. They might be done for good.
And we've seen the community rally around these stores that have been in business for years and years and years, and then they've been hit over and over and over again by burglars, and they're clinging to life by their fingernails. But how many times can you go out and buy jewelry at a jewelry store that you don't really want or need to help out a local community because they keep getting hit? At what point don't you just fix the system so that you crack down on the criminals and they can sell their jewelry without having to worry about this sort of thing?
Yeah, it's a little different than when the donut shop gets broken into because it's very easy to go down and get a dozen.
Okay, you got glare on and you still have donut hole.
Little more difficult when it comes to the jewelry.
Yeah, I mean, the average person only has 10 fingers. Way more jewelry shops get robbed than that. I mean, we're already on the nipple rings. Where else can we bedazzle?
It's a good thing this show is over. Otherwise, you'd get us into some very dark territory.
Probably. All right, that's going to do it for us. We'll be back tomorrow at noon for another edition of The John Phillips Show.